So I had a good session today, which I needed. I had a grueling session on Saturday live. Lost about two buy-ins, three buy-ins. Well, I'm buying it at 500, so let's call it two buy-ins, but between three and four buy-ins. It was a session where pretty well every move I made, every play I made, just was countered. Mostly because of fate. I don't feel like I was necessarily that outplayed. Maybe a couple of these people are fairly good players, so it's possible. I moved to a fairly action-filled table, so when there's a lot of people playing very loose, very size agnostic, big pots, lots of gamble. There's going to be a pretty high variance level, I guess, is what it would be. So even though I stuck to my strategy, played my base game, adjusted as I thought necessary to the player that I was playing, nothing really worked out. Any sort of bluff catches I made, they turned out to have their value. Any bluffing I made got called. Any value I was playing either didn't get called or was beaten by better value. Yeah, shit just did not go well. Like, got it in with ace king numerous times and lost pretty well every single one. Lost versus ace queen once on a four flush. Lost on a straighten board versus some horseshit like 9-4 off or something. 9-5 off, I guess it would be. Just a lot of that kind of stuff. So a frustrating session, and was tired and sort of wondering at what point do we start to see some significant gains. This is supposed to be a job. In theory, I'm supposed to be making my rent here, and I've put a lot of study and time into something that doesn't come easy to me. Some people this is just very natural for. I really like games and strategy, but I don't find it simple. I have a hard time taking the theory and applying in game. I have a hard time keeping my head. I have a hard time not getting tilted. I probably shouldn't have played as long as I did. It was an 8-hour session. Usually I play 4 to 5 hours. That one I played longer because it was such a good table. And if things had gone a little bit more positively, then I would have had a really great session, and I wouldn't be talking about this right now. But anyway, lessons are distillable from any experience, I guess, and that was certainly one of them. I wouldn't say it was the worst session, but it was close. Like, I don't usually I lose a buy-in, and I'm, especially if the loss is sort of it just has come after a number of like hours of not getting hands, or a number of hours of flopping nothing, or a number of you're just in a run bad spot, right? Like, who knows how long that's going to go on for. It could end the very next hand, or it could go on until next month. And I would say I've been in this more than I have not for the last 4 months. We all have these excuses of what it is that might be causing it. Maybe it's the sort of deep dive I'm doing on the game yet again. Maybe it's not being aware enough in game to know when I'm getting played. I'm playing against people that I don't have a lot of history on most of the time. I don't play in a game where it's the same 8 people over and over for weeks and weeks and months and years on end. And then every once in a while, some new person will come in there. I play in a pretty big pool at low stakes. I certainly could play higher stakes. I'm for sure bankrolled for it, but my theory at the moment is why play in games where I have less edge. I think I have a pretty good edge, but I also need to be aware when that edge is diminished for whatever reason, whether it's tired, tilt, run bad, crazy players who just have a natural instinct for knowing when I'm strong and when to slow down, when they're better at exploiting me than I am at exploiting them. My exploitation game has never been fantastic. I'm very self-focused when it comes to the strategies I play. It's very difficult for me to confidently guess what it is that somebody's doing. It's easier when I can see all these little stats up on the screen, start making some moves based on that info. Tougher, live, all this like tell stuff. I don't know how much value I put in that. Like people who call out hands and then kind of self-reinforce this idea that they were right when they get it right 1 out of 4 times. I don't know. I mean, I don't even bother with that as much. I want to have a sense of a range, and if that hand is in the range and I call out a hand that's equivalent to the hand that they have range-wise, then I feel like I've succeeded just fine. So, yeah. So anyway, this session went better, mostly because it was a run good session. Hit a lot of hands, hit a lot of flops, got a couple of really strong value bets in on a river. One line that I used 3 times, I think, that we're going to review is check, bet, check. No other way around. Bet, check, bet. As a pre-flop aggressor, c-bet, check turn, bet river. And I'm not sure in each of those how smart any of them were, to be honest. I don't know whether I should have just kept it simple and bet, 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 or bet, bet, check, or bet, check, check. Anyway, one thing that is kind of getting better, I think, is I'm becoming a little bit more aware of these sorts of lines and the very general shape of expectation of what we want to do. On a bet, check, or bet, call, check, check, bet, call, check, bet large, raise, like all of these sorts of different formations blurred together a lot in the, say, previous to a year ago, and over the last year, all of it has become more focused. It's like I've been using a microscope and I'm slowly starting to differentiate these things from just kind of a pool of action that I had a whole lot of heuristics that I would play, and particularly coming at it from like a tournament player where, so much of my tournament play was pre-flop and flop and almost hardly really getting turn and river strategy working, because by the flop you're all in with these small stacks, right? So yeah, especially considering how I play tournaments, the nittiest motherfucker ever. So let's give some of these a shot. I think I got 14 hands. We'll see how many I can get through. So we open, get defended by the small blind. So usually I would either 4-bet fold, but this number and this number both made me sort of stop and go, I mean, granted, this is 1 of 2, and then this is, 3 of 6. So I probably am overplaying the amount that I'm seeing of this guy. We're only looking at 6 hands. So to deviate here, I think was probably a mistake. Should have 4-bet or fold. So already this is fairly simple 4-bet fold. Not enough samples to do the exploit I did. So the exploit I did was, fishy player, I'll just call and outplay him post flop. This didn't really work out. So they continue to bet. We have overs. I think we call once. The size is a little bit hefty, but I guess their overpairs are betting this almost always. They do the same size again. Next bet will be an all-in. In fact, this bet, this next bet will be an all-in, so there's no calling here. So I think that's a pretty clear post-flop play, and probably should just have, well, not even probably, should just have three better fold three. So made that mistake. Their size was a tiny bit smaller from the small blind, especially to our three. So they kind of gave us a price to call. It's like a straight three bet, but 3x. But nonetheless, three better fold. Same hand, get a limp, raise, get called, loose, small samples, get top pair with a backdoor. Check it, call. So here, do we check raise? Certainly could. Certainly could. Probably would be good to do some check raising of our top pairs, especially with a redraw. I mean, us checking the flop is also a little suspect, maybe. We could just have bet let out. No optics on whether if we give it up, they're going to bet. I think like a linear raise of 4, 8, 18, like 12 big blinds maybe. So go from just 3x there, the bet rather than calling it maybe. So I'd say that probably something. I think at this point we've popped it, and I think our size there could also be a lot bigger. We could go 6 or 7 instead of 5. We've checked, which is I think fine, 50-50. Here I think we could certainly raise. Again, there's nothing to tell us that this guy is necessarily over bluffing. So, like the more they bluff, the more likely they are to bluff, the more we'll just be incentivized to call down with strength, right? To keep all the bluffs in. Do we have denial, needs? Well, with the ace club, we sort of block the draws. So any bets they're making might be worse queens. They certainly could have sets. They certainly could have two pairs. Sets of sevens, sets of jacks even, sets of queens possibly. Limp with jacks or queens. I don't know. I mean, that opening limp is probably a huge red flag in terms of back players. So anyway, let's just move on and see. So we check, and then check, and then they bet again. So another half pot, less than half pot. So we're certainly not folding. I don't think at this point we're raising now. Hand's just not strong enough. We've lost our draw. 6 is not good for our range. Absolutely better for them. 7-6. 7-6 basically, or 6s, I guess. Although I don't think 6s would bet the flop to a check. Yeah, so I guess all that's improved for them is 7-6 maybe. I don't see, maybe need more sample to know whether queen 6, say. And then the flush does come, which shuts them down. And we're going to just show down, and they'll end up with queen jack. So this we can't really do anything on in terms of solver, but what we can do is call ourselves a probably okay hand. And let's just say flop a couple BB bigger. pressure. No, that's pre. And then flop. Could lead. And surely could check raise as well. Not really sure whether we need to be as passive as we are. Although all of that, having said all that, said that, weird to raise free, check, then raise. It's like one of those, that seems really kind of fishy, right? So I think in the end, the best play probably is leading for the most part, leading for B50, 65 or so percent of the time. So call and then turn call is fine. So I think I've talked myself into thinking I probably played a good hand. It's not a terrible hand. Queen 9 open is like basically bare edge. We get called by the same 50 guy. Huber, is that right? Maybe it's not the same guy. No, it's not the same because he had a bunch of 3-bets. 2 overs. They check to us. I think our hand is bad enough that we want to bet. Granted, we don't have a lot of 2s. We do have tons of overpairs. And even mid pairs probably would want to put a little bit of cash in. Checked. We bet, they call. 5 comes, not good for us. These are all, I mean, this is one of these small blind calling ranges, which I don't know anything about, so I don't play it. They could easily be super strong. Any bet we do make, I can't see us polarizing. The hand would only want to bet, this particular hand would only want to bet in a sort of super favorable world, which I don't think we can claim. The only favorability would be over pairs. They have the 5s. We're going to share a lot of the nutted hands. We'll have more 8s. Who the fuck knows, man? Like, who calls in the small blind to a big blind open? In any case, I think we have a hand that certainly has the ability to bluff and wants to put money in as a bluff, but I think the value we are repping is slim, I guess, except for all the overpairs. So what hands would be better analogs for that? Maybe ace jack, maybe, sorry, not ace jack, queen jack, queen 10, maybe queen 9 does want to over bet. It's tricky. So we check, ace comes. This is definitely a card we can bet, especially when they check to us. They're very weak. So now we polar, and they call because they hit ace jack, right? Yeah. So turns out the hand, the place to have made that proper bluff would have probably been the turn. We would have likely had a fold there. Likely. I don't think that guy calls us 2 barrels with ace jack. Let's have a look. Pretty confident that will be the solver's decision as well. Queen 9. This one, yeah. Check. No, it's not that one. No. Queen 9. Oh, that's why. not suited. Okay. Yeah. So the turn can check. The flop, if we're going to bet, it wants to be bigger. So this surprises me. I would have thought on twos, I guess because nobody has twos in their range. If these are threes or fours or fives, then our bet size would probably be smaller. But the fact that they're twos, then again, who knows what a small blind calling range is. But I would generally keep my bet small on these polarizing cards. Polarizing for my opponent, not for me. But I do know that these big, small card boards generally get a big bet from the solvers. So I have to reconcile that in my mind with the theory versus the reality. And then there is a check bet split, mostly bets, different sizes. It'll be 50, be 75. So probably EV wise, it's not much of a difference, but yes, we want to put a bet in there. And then actually the river is totally fine. It's just how we ran into a particular part of the range. So in the end, the biggest mistake according to the solver is the bet size. And I'm going to say that I'm probably okay with going small because I don't really believe that this particular player plays a small blind calling range that's matching whatever the solver uses. So like, for example, let's just look and see what that range looks like. Does it exist? Here. Yeah, so it's just hardly anything. Just slivers of a bunch of pocket pairs, some twos, no ace twos, no anything twos except for a pair of twos. And then I guess there's enough. There's enough. So there's some small suited aces. It's funny, I just never use this. I'm always three betting. I guess that's my simplification. So I just three bet purely from the small blind. The problem with calling is you set yourself up to get squeezed. So I'm not sure what reason we would ever want to. So like if we called in the small blind and then the big blind were to raise and then the button were to fold, what does the small blind do? It does a little bit of calling with those. If it were to call, the small blind will shove a bunch of these things. This thing's gotten bad. Let's see, where is this? Normalized. Yeah. So yeah. So it'll like reshove with these strong overcards, and it'll just keep cold calling with these pockety parry kind of stuff. Maybe one day we could, when we're bored of how we're playing and we want to expand a little bit. So I'm gonna give this a grade. I haven't done great in a while. I don't know whether it's actually great or not, but I need to start differentiating my goods from grades. So at some point, we might want to start building a small blind calling range from versus button open, but would need some study to figure out best practices. Flop solver expects to use big size here, which makes sense when small blind has no 2x in the range, but it's not clear to me whether in game this guy had that. So chose to go small. Everything else is fine. Oh yeah, and then the turn. Actually, you know what? Let's just make this a good hand, not a great hand, because there was enough. Turn. More bets than checks here. Probably want to mostly bet this, and we would have won had we bet. Re-raise, get called, in position, bad flop. For our re-raising range, they check, we check. Turn, another card that completes nothing, but is still not super strong for us. We have a great showdown value hand. We really didn't pick up any equity other than a gut shot. We have no real need to put money in. We would hate to put money in and get raised because the hand is strong. And then when the jack comes, I think we just show down and we lose to threes. So the question now becomes, do we have a river bet? And was this another one of our examples of missing value slash kind of hybrid-y question mark on rivers? I think it's just going to say no. No, yeah, pretty well no's across the board. So we certainly have a few bets on the turn on the jack because of the gut shot, I guess. I'll bet you with and I would have bet if that jack was a diamond jack. No problem there. So it's just how favorable is that board to us versus them. I guess we have king queen. They have some king queen. We have jacks. They have none. Queen 9 is theirs. Maybe sometimes I would raise that suited. I want to see overall what also polarizes on that turn. Turn here. Right, so this is a very polar spot because we are the more polar range at the very tippy top, 90 plus. It's funny, and 90 plus and then 70 to 80 to 90. They get a little, oh no, 97. Oh yeah, right at the top, 97 or 98. And then the rest of the time, the small blind is the strongest range. So 100% it's all pure polar. And does the ace king want to polarize? Well, we've already established not tremendously, but it can. Straight sets, two pairs, over pairs, ace high. Interesting that those would also be that far up there. I guess because of the gut shot. I mean, I suppose it's sort of a middle. What are these gut shots here? Yeah. I would think those gut shots would be better. Like, why not raise those ones versus these ones? I guess because it has the added equity of if a king or an ace comes on the river and we're versus a very wide range. It's the pair of us. That must be mostly the reason. So note would be turn does have bets, polar bets, does have polar bets here. Jack better for small blind range, but we have the a good portion of straights and sets. And there's really no denial needs because there's no flush coming. Ace King seems to be a hybrid hand where we have a little value, a draw to nut straight to straight. It's not nuts because oh yeah, no, that's it's nut straight to nut straight, and also some value with the O pairs versus wide small blind range. So we'll call that good. Queen 9, I decide to try and take some of my own advice and start pushing a little bit. I also read them as being opening pretty loose and also fairly passive. So any re-raises we get, obviously we're folding anyways, no matter what their stats, but they call and we flop nothing. And I decide to check with no draws. I certainly probably should bet this flop. It's all for me. Best hands by far are mine. Got all the aces, all the ace king, all the eight kings, all the even sevens. I got maybe not quite as many sevens. Maybe we'll share those. We'll share the draws. I got the better ace queen, ace jack. Mostly. So, and queen 9 is just dog shit here. So we probably would rather, obviously would rather have a redraw with the hearts. Queen 9, I'm not ever offsuit, I'm never re-raising. If anything, I'm probably folding. So I don't see where I have a heart in this hand. Single heart. But yes, but the point of it is blocking heart draws because they're not folding any flush draws to our c-bet, even if we made it 3/4 pot. And then the flush comes, we get a pair of nines. There's no point in repping a flush with a pair of nines. They bet and we fold. So I think there's a lot of question marks in this hand. The main question mark really is should we be c-betting here? And I think I've determined that we should. And then the next question mark, do we delay c-bet on this flush with a 9? And I'm pretty sure we don't. I don't think we have a lot of showdown value, but we have it against 6s, 5s, 4s, 3s, 2s, 1s, 8s, queen jacks of the world. So, but when they bet a tiny amount, I don't see any point in continuing here. Kind of an odd bet at that point to make. Maybe they would have a flush redraw, I guess, possibly with some lower card, maybe king, queen with a queen redraw, maybe. Not sure. So let's just see if this is a well-played hand. I'm sort of feeling like it's not going to be for a number of reasons. Queen 9. It's this one. And so the raise is fine. The check is actually turned out to be fine. What do you know? The turn, we could put a bet in. Small one, 20%. And they actually, it wants a call here, so we lost a value EV there. I want to just see now why we aren't kind of range betting this flop. Seems to me is it we're just going too much. A lot of bets. And it just so happens we have the one combo we don't want to bet. Redraw the diamonds, hearts. So basically, even queen 8, the spades bets, interestingly enough, but not queen 9. So we're basically holding the only combo on the flop that doesn't bet. King 8 checks. Checks a checking range. Some of these kings will protect the checking range. But queen 9, that's so funny. Even 10, jack 9 has, oh no, it's checks more than bets on the spade version. Checks more than bets, yeah, okay. Right, okay. So we're definitely in a world where we're hardly betting at all, or we're hardly checking at all, other than the fact that we're mixing checks. Let's say that pure checking. We're hardly pure checking at all, right? The only pure checks really are kind of in maybe in that zone, that particular the spades there. Some of these jacks maybe. Nope, it's a mix. Oh yeah, king 5 looks like is pure check. And a lot of the king 4s are pure check. Okay, and then what do? We call, oh yeah, we want to call with that small pair, but I'm gonna bet that that particular person is, I think they're probably just not betting enough there to warrant our call with a 9. So flop, almost all combos in range are betting this flop as it's so good, except for this one combo. But it's not like I was some sort of genius by finding that. I probably just won't bet enough here. So make that note. 9 open on the button, get another fucking flat from the small blind. We have a gut shot. I think I would prefer a bet here, which I didn't make, and I think I should have. Now we'll bet, get called, and then hitting a 9 on the river and face 10s. So I would say this flop wanted to be bet. I think that's probably the main mistake in this hand. I think betting the ace is fine. Also, the size on that turn bet is bad. So we should bet more like pot. There's no ace that we have is betting for 2.2. That was just a weak, pissy little bet. So that was a huge mistake there. And flop. I don't think we can make an argument for having a mixed strategy here either. Again, very difficult to know because of this range, like what a small blind flatting range looks like. We sort of looked at it, but I just don't have an intuition for it built in. So flop, we should bet this combo. And turn size is atrocious. Terrible. Don't know how to spell atrocious. Much bigger. Probably because I think, oh, we share aces, so why spend a bunch more money? And if we don't have an ace, then or if they happen to not be in their ace range, they'll fold to whatever bet we put in. So save some money maybe there. Not totally sure that's the right way to play, but king 9, king 9. What am I looking at? King 9. So no, I'm wrong. Oh no, I'm right. No, I'm wrong. So the size on the turn was right. Small. Check on the flop was right-ish. It's fine to bet or check. And then turn is a small bet. Interesting. And the river is a check. So actually well played hand. And getting myself confused in analysis. No. No, because their range is so, that's sort of what I said, I guess, as I went to the solve, is so ace X heavy that any bet we make will be called if they're in that portion of range. So any bet we make where they aren't, and probably don't have a queen either, they will fold. So we'll give it a good instead. I think that makes sense. Where are we at here? We're good. Ace 4, we call. Don't really see much reason in repopping, even though they've got 3/4 stack. Nothing comes. Ace on the river. We bet, we call, and they just have an ace. So we split, it looks like. We chop, yeah. So that's fine. That's a boring hand. Probably shouldn't have bothered. And I guess the only question on that previous hand would be, do we have a raise on the river? I don't think so, not with ace 4. King 10 off. Queen 10 raise. King 10 we'll just call and see what we hit. Isn't much. Hit a 10 now. So now this bet I thought was a little odd. I guess I figure, you know what, this is a really good board for me. Just my range is smashing this board essentially. So why not put a little bit of money in, even with a pair? I can bet pretty well everything here. I can bet lots of bluffs. I can bet lots of other pairs, 7s, pairs of 6s, pairs of 8s, pairs of 9s, well, 9's a straight, pair, a 10. I can bet at some jacks. I can overbet or I can bet my pairs. I would imagine I have probably some sort of mixed strategy here. And then they just fold. So let's have a look. King 10 off. King 10 off world here. And the bet size is, we just want to check it. So it's not that good for us. I don't know. I thought that range is just, we called, they're open, and it was a pretty sweet board, man. We got a ton of 9s. How many 9s do they have? I guess they are cut off, so maybe they have more 9s than I'm giving them credit for. Let's have a look and see what the chart looks like by that point. Yeah, we're actually more polar than I thought. So we should be implementing a polarized strategy here, and it's not that good for our range. It's all bigger bets, B75 and B50. Makes sense. And tens likely don't want to put any money in, like a 10x, king 10, jack queen 10, no. Jack 10's a 2 pair, 10 6, no. Ace 10, no. Yeah, none of those suited either. All right, so that was a mistake there. Inaccuracy. We are much more polar on this board on this turn. The 10 isn't awesome for our whole range. So when we bet B50 and B75, and 10x is not part of that polar portion. Eight, 7 open, small blind, big blind, open ender, redraw to the nut, flush, but generally not a great board for our raising small blind range. Having said that, probably could put a bet in. 10 comes nothing, now we bet. No, we don't. Weird. Probably should. We call a bet though, and then hit the straight, check, and check back. So lost money like an idiot. Wouldn't have really gained anything, I guess. That bet on the turn would have likely just folded them. They were bluffing, so we bluff caught with a draw. And then I think one thing that occurred to me as I was playing today was how often can we, like, let me put it a different way. At some point, I need to start thinking about ways to lead after making calls, and those points are going to be spots where I'm really confident I'm not going to get an opportunity to call a bet, right? So, like, say that spot, or say when flushes come in. But I mean, everybody and their dog knows that a flush, that somebody leading into after call, and then lead a flush river, it's so obviously that's what they're doing. But the counter to that is not to not do it. The counter to that is to do it with enough bluffs to make it so that they'll call. I know I've been ridiculed before for making that play when flushed, but I need to also be able to make that play when not flush, but blocking a flush, say, or I've done that where the other flush, I'll be drawing to one flush and then the other flush will come in. So I'll on a double flush board, say like this one. So if I was drawing to the club, then I would raise, or I would raise or bet lead out on the heart board. So the machine has me playing it just exactly how I played it, so no biggie. But I guess that does bring up the question of, like, at what point can we say we are implementing some of those sorts of lead spots? So like in this river, do we have any leads? Really nothing to speak of. A couple bits and pieces, but it's basically a nothing. Do we have a lead on this turn? We do, but that's only because the flop checked. When are we pushing into a pre-flop aggressor with a lead on the flop? Boards like this, 6-5-4, I think there. Yeah, we're checking 100%, so we were right there. If roles were reversed and we had been the caller, say that it was a button open and we were the big blind caller, then so like we'll do that here, and then so we raise and then call, and that same board comes out 4, 5, 6. Then we're gonna have a ton of leads, I would imagine. Yeah, ton, 40%. I'll bet you there's even boards where this is a 100%. So let's find. Oops. Let's find right here, almost 100%, 764. 7, yeah, so we're kind of in the zone. Very close to 50%, or just over 50%. Anyway, it was just a thought that occurred to me as I was playing in that spot. Did I want to start having some leads in spots like that? Where I have made the nuts, I do have some value, or I have a fantastic analog to the nuts, and just, you know, again, if I'm only ever leading when a flush hits a river with not the flush but a bluff flush, then obviously then people will pick up on that and want to call all the time when I lead, right? So it's a fine line. Any strategy has a counter, and any strategy needs to have some question in it as to whether A or B is happening. In the end of the day, that one was fine. I don't really use great. I don't feel like calling myself great, but let's just call this one great. It's like the solver approved would be great, I suppose. Three-way, multi-way. There's no point in raising with this hand. It doesn't really block any value, or it unblocks a lot of calling value. So, and it's a good suited hand that if we hit, we can make some good money on. So we got a draw, but two big overcards that likely have strength in them, or as one of these people, I don't know, I have no stats on them, would potentially bet. Then the flush comes. We bet and they raise. So the question here would be, do we re-raise because it's kind of a small linear raise, or do we just call? I decided to just call, and then I decided to check the river and call a big bet, which they gave, and we bet, and we called, and they had ace off, which was fine. I don't think their bet size was particularly good on the turn, but it was fine to check raise with the ace-6. That's very smart. I guess putting a big bet on the river is smart, I suppose, I guess. I don't know. Doesn't seem very smart, but it is in position. You generally want to be betting big. So with top pair, maybe. I guess they think they get a call from a king. I'm not sure. They think they get a call from a worse ace. I don't think so. What a worse ace called a check raise on the turn and isn't spaded? Ace king, maybe? Ace king big blind, call, not likely. Ace queen, maybe. Ace something, ace 2, I guess. I don't know. Just not well thought out, that one, I don't think. So we kind of got lucky with some bad play on the part of a not super great player. What did we say? Turn, was there a raise on the turn? I don't think so. I think we could easily be out flushed, and if they're bluffing, which they were, then keep the bluffs in. We don't really need to have a massive pot, I don't think. Sevens. This, I don't love this moment of what are we going to do versus a limp and a bad player's limp, a seems like a fairly competent player's big open on the button, and sevens. We don't want to call, I don't think, and re-raising seems really stupid, but I think I did re-raise in a real weird size too. I guess because they're so big on the button that I did not feel like I wanted to go to like 18 or something with this portion of my range. Um, and you just never know with these limpy people. Like maybe this particular person doesn't have it in them to limp re-raise, but it's possible they can limp aces if they're playing a limping range. Maybe they're constructing properly. I don't know. In this case, they probably aren't. We get called. We have a middle pair on a raggedy board that I don't see a lot of value in putting money into, but there is some denial needs, so maybe we should bet that, continue there. We'll call once and end up calling against ace high. So that turned into quite a big hand that I think probably was not well played. And I don't even think I can look at the solver to this because it won't have that opening limper. So probably I think just fold small blind. Sevens is very, very marginal. Nines I could see re-raising. So, and then the size, I understand what I'm trying to do there, but I think we have to be cognizant of how big that raise is on the button, and either go 13 or 14, still pulling it back a little bit, but just kind of raising to my normal size in a small blind of 11 or 12. Big blinds is, I think I'm trying to like cut rate things, right? And I'm just giving them such a great price to call. Like there's no fold in that ever. And sevens for sure wants some denial against this hand, this exact hand, or the ace queens or the ace kings. Ace kings are not folding, but ace jacks would fold to a bigger bet, possibly. Ace 10 will call, ace 9 will call, like all the suited aces are going to call, and we, would rather with sevens not have an ace, obviously. So then the flop, I think, is some raggedy ass shit, and we don't have a lot of value there. Our sevens has a lot of denial needs, but really can't afford them. So, making a value bet with the sevens is probably just the wrong portion of range to do that with. I think we would just save that for over pairs, and then 9 maybe top pair, ace 9, kind of it. 9-8, I guess. 10-9 maybe. So let's write some of this up. And I'll say okay. They don't have a solver to tell me otherwise. Size 2, 13, 14. Too good a price for button a call. Get it. His bet size was so big. Flop, probably smart not to bet here with this portion of range. Eating a raise and price should be quite high for 10x, 10 plus. Denial needs 9x, etc. Turn, I think, is okay. Call. And river is fine. You see? Yeah, so it's okay. Another sevens hand. This time against the button on the proper size, this is easy. So we make it 10, they call, then nothing, or no, what am I talking about? I hit a set with an ace queen. Again, we're checking on really favorable boards for us. Like we've got all the aces, queens. We have lots of draws. There's no point in slow playing here. So I don't love that at all. I think this is a bet, a necessary bet with a super strong hand and tons of cards on the board for people to call with. Now, that is a consideration, as is that, So bad player who is over 3-betting 2 out of 7 opportunities. So I guess stats wise, it's not really usable. But that is pretty usable, and they're not maintaining a good stack. And that is usable to a certain extent, 8 of 20 hands. They're playing a lot. So not a good player, wide range, concentrated into aces. So lots of aces to call with. So anyway, we check and then get a call. And I think the bet was big enough that it is fine to just call here instead of check raise. When they check the turn, now we're going to have to put in a bet of, the full pot, basically their stack for the river. And then they fold. So I think an ace calls there every day of the week, and we would have been totally fine. The only spot that maybe for this particular hand, us checking was a benefit, was a good exploit, but I think it was backed into. It wasn't intentionally done. So I'm going to okay this one. Okay. And then flop. Probably should lead c-bet. C-bet. Great board for our range. And we have awesome value. And an opponent set up for calls backed into a player who overbluffs. Check raise probably out of the question as haste is low. Their stack is SPR 1 by us just calling. Oh, that's fine. We'll check this one out, see if the solver agrees. I'm sure there's going to be raises there, but I'm pretty sure this is a lead. Yeah, so, there. Yeah, so just bet it, Just a small bet, doesn't hurt anybody. Folding's fine, raising is also somewhat fine. Sticking here is fine. What do they want us to do here? This is I don't know why that's no good there. Strange. It doesn't want to open either. So I don't know what the options are. Maybe river small bet. Maybe that would be the only better play there. We check called and then shove river on nothing run out. Seems suspect as fuck. So probably river should do just a B20 or so. And 4 arrays. Or B10 even. That might be a really good spot for B10. Run out's no good. I guess I sort of thought like, oh, I'm on a flush draw, and but I don't block any of those. I don't unblock that bluff. Is that what I'm saying? I don't unblock that draw for them. If I had a 7 spade there, then for sure, smashing it in would, because they'd be less likely to be on a draw themselves and more likely to have that ace. So I guess, yeah. And there is some denial there on the turn. We probably should be a little bit more hasty to get it in, do we? I mean, they're just gonna... No, I'm not thinking that out properly. Okay, aces, small blind, open raise, or not open raise, but re-raise, 3-bet. Small continuation. We got lots of value, and we got a redraw, so I don't think we're too paranoid about getting raised. I think we are fairly fine with receiving, especially a shitty little half pot raise or 2x raise there. So call and check. 9. Not super good for us, but not terrible as well. No draws came in, which is fine. We check, they check. On the king, I question whether this is such a good action here. I think now we've seen them raise and then check the turn. I don't see why a made flush would check a turn. No reason whatsoever to be that weirdly deceptive. So I think on a king river, good card for our range, particularly this hand, we should probably be putting in a 20 or 30, beat 20, 30, something like that. And unfortunately, I mean, I don't think we would have got a call, but that particular hand, yeah, I think overall, those are little spots there where we can get more value from things like that. Like a king 10 would have called for sure, obviously. Right, so the solver is putting in a small 8%. Here's your tiny little bet. Because of that turn check, I have to be a little bit more conscious of those weak, even if strength shown on the flop, turn checks in position especially just really don't make a lot of sense. So once we get here, we have a fairly strong range advantage, to say the least. To say the least. So our aces especially, and all kinds of other hands have incentive to put money in, especially the bigger hands. So it's this spot here. They check, and what does their range look like here? So stronger here, they raise, and we call. So they've polarized. But then the minute they check the turn, they're still polar, but now we've taken over that turn to see how so they go from being this range, which for the most part, I guess we're sharing the net advantage. They're still nutted, and no, we're not sharing. They're still the polar range, so they have a lot of bets here, and interestingly, it's only B50. Not totally sure why that's the case. Our nut, they're fairly strongly built, more built from that 9, I guess. Maybe, I don't know. I'm not sure why the 9. Maybe it's because the flush didn't come in, and a lot of their range at that point that is check raising is the flush cards, or flush drawing cards. Anyway, Queen 10 is not even in their range. Oh, no Queen 10. No Queen 10. So they're too loose to be playing. But the point of all of that conversation is that they're very polar here, but the minute the king comes and they also check back, we've just smashed them. So we want to be betting here all the time with almost everything in our range, other than some of these 10 cards, I think. What was the overview? Yeah, 10, 4, 3. So all of the 10s we will just check with, but and some of the jacks, but the rest of our hands are putting money in the pot. So we missed a bet on that river. So yes, missed a bet on the river. Want to bet small with this portion, and then we have tons of bigger bets with stronger, with polar from the poles. Actually, I think that's actually upwards of an inaccuracy and also a river issue. Queens. And yeah, so kind of a raggedy jack high board. We definitely have a lot of denial. We are not too deep, but deeper than usual. We had started with 120, 130 big blinds. So there's a certain amount of haste to get some money into the pot. The Jack 9, the 9, I don't know slowing down here makes much sense. I don't know exactly why I would slow down. This was one of these bet, check, bet lines that I guess in my mind, the 9 is not a great card for us because of why. What 9s do we have? I mean, our overpairs are still our overpairs, and they still have the same denial needs to avoid a case and a king, say, or kings avoiding aces. So, and there's still lots of lower pairs that'll call us. Jack 9 has come in, of course, and a pair of 9s has just made a set, but really that's just a small portion of a pretty wide range. There's no need, I think, to slow down. I think we should just keep putting the money into the pot. We still have a long ways to go. Blanky rivers, we just have a great 3 street hand that is potentially winning. So like that, perfect example. Oh, I don't, maybe that's not a perfect example. And then I actually polar bet here. Because I thought I counterfeited other 2 pairs, but then what 2 pairs are we talking about, right? Like Jack 9 is really the only 2 pair. Maybe Ace 2 would be the only hand that would be bad for us at this point. And Ace 2 probably would call a big bet on the flop, but won't bet the turn. And now, will they check the river? I don't think so. So I don't think we have to worry about that. But I think the turn, we need to keep the gas on the, need to keep the foot on the gas, yeah. Queen. And here. So flop's fine, bet's fine, and the bigger bet is fine. Maybe we went a little too big, we just be 50. And then, well, it turns out checks and bets are okay here. Half the time we go either way. And then big bet on the river is totally good. So The worry on the turn is valid, but not mandatory. Definitely a B50 on turn half the time. So all good, but keep in mind. I wouldn't do B50, I'd do B75 probably. And then solver has more like B50 instead of. Otherwise, fine. It's good. And then this is the other one of these. So we open, we get re-raised. More times than not, I'm folding, especially to an unknown. But we do have position, and it's a nice hand when it hits, which it does. They bet, so we could raise or we could call. I think with the ace on board, a raises would be really good, which is what we did. They called, so to me that says great ace. We also had denial with a draw, obviously. I know they're not going to fold, but we want to get paid as much as we can when they don't hit their flushes. So SPR now is 1. Initially, I thought this would be bad to just give up on the turn here. We are letting flushes come in for free. We have, so we, in that way, you know, a pot size bet is probably the better play against all the aces and all those draws that hopefully we'll miss. I decided to check, I guess, because I wanted to protect a checking range after check raising. And that would be a lot of diamond draws would be in that range. So protecting that range with some strong value like this is a positive. We potentially could do the same with ace X, say ace diamond offsuit. So the backdoor diamond draws and protect that way. It's an interesting hand. When we bank the river, then and they bet out with a tiny little bet, blocker bet, and then we shove on them, which we didn't price high enough. We should have gone a little bit bigger, 60 or something, to get all their money. That was terrible. I just did not play that properly. It's good, you know, like there's enough draws that missed here that the bluffs are just all over the place, right? Like it's very, very clear this is a very bluffy potential board, and we should have just shoved, and we missed about 10 blinds worth of value there. And they happen to have a straight. It flopped a straight. Funny. Yeah, flopped a straight. Interesting, their tiny little bet on the river. They could have maybe gone bigger. So let's finish off with that. King, queen 10. Not sure I'm particularly proud of this hand. Yeah. So the solver doesn't use this size of raise, but it does have some sizes, some raises. I guess because there's so many other better two pairs and sets than ours. We just aren't polar enough to warrant that size. And anyway, the call is just the better spot to be in. Check's fine. And then nothing happens on the river because it just doesn't get there properly. So, yeah, let's make some notes. Tick raise, or the raise is okay, but size too big. We aren't in polar enough portion to warrant. They have all the better hands. And we have none. We have none of them. And then river should just have shoved with effective nuts. All right, I think that's it. We will keep doing this as we do.